and gentlemen, welcome back to the Prince Podcast here on Podcast Juice. My name is Michael Dean, and boy, do we have a special guest today. We are joined by the legendary Mr. Levi Seacer Jr. Sir, how are you?
Man, I'm great.
All right, we getting hyped up, man. It's a pleasure to have you here. We've been following you for a very long time, and I hate to say you were like an unsung hero in the Prince camp, but I don't know how many people know a lot of your story. But I know for myself, I've definitely been watching you for a long time, and it's a pleasure to have you come on today and share with us, and we definitely respect your time. So shout out to you, brother. We got a lot of love for you over here.
Oh, man, I appreciate it. All the love, and all the love I can get.
All right. Well, man, let's get started. I want to change it up a little bit. Normally what I do is I like to ask, the background where a person come from, and we are going to do that with you. But right now I got to satisfy one of my own sort of curiosities and questions I always wanted to know about, man. And hopefully you can speak on this. Can you give us a little insight into the flesh? If hopefully you know what I'm talking about. There was some recordings.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, man. Mm-hmm. Can you give us a little background on what that was? Because we don't wore out some of these little songs and music that has leaked out. Particularly, you got to shake something. Man.
Yeah.
That's a cold one right there, man. And
man, that was a great experience. Actually, when I was recording it, I didn't really know what it was for.
Okay.
Because we would go to Sunset Sound. This is when I was with Sheila,
mm-hmm.
and Prince would invite me to record with him, which I was so honored to do that, man. He's like, yeah, come by the session. So Sheila and Wendy, Lisa, and Prince and Eric Leeds, and man, we just get in the studio and record literally all day and night. And, back then they had those 2-inch tapes. So,
right.
They didn't really last very long. You may have 15, 20 minutes on per tape, depending on what speed you're running at. And Prince said, okay, let's start jamming. And then later on, he'd give it a title.
Wow.
But when I went in there, man, it was just, hey, Sheila, start with a beat. Levi, come with the bass line, Mm-hmm. And then we were actually, I guess, creating it and writing it as we were playing. He always taught us to produce our parts. He said, never just jam.
Okay.
Always play like you're making a record. But it was a lot of fun, man, and it gave me a chance to see the playful side of Prince.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you hear on the record, he's just having a ball,
Yeah.
Not that it wasn't fun when we played concerts, but it was a little more intense. There's a lot of things to remember and whatever. But when we did the Flesh sessions, man, it was just like, let's play some funk, let's have some fun, and let's go.
Now, how structured was that? Because when I listened to that track, you got to shake something, and I want to say that's almost 15-minute jam. How much of that is structured, or are you guys just sort of playing? Because it seems like you guys are jumping into different parts and stuff. Or was that some of it rehearsed before? Or?
Not one iota of it was rehearsed.
Wow.
But that's what I was saying earlier. He always taught us to produce our parts and think like you're making a record. So instead of us just jamming anything, if he said, Levi, come in with the bass, I'm already thinking ahead of time, what would fit here?
Okay.
Sheila was thinking what would fit here. And then when you get everybody thinking like that, it sounds like it was actually rehearsed, but it wasn't. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. Man,
yeah, and it was great practice, man. Great practice to pay attention and play as a unit instead of playing. Sometimes you hear, and I'm not discrediting anybody, but sometimes when you hear people play, you can tell they're not being a unit. Prince always taught us to always be a unit. And so that's what you're hearing, but no rehearsal, man.
Wow. And there was a lot, like you mentioned, there's a lot of great musicians that was in that room at that time. Of course, Prince, Sheila, yourself, Eric Leeds, we said Wendy and Lisa was in there. Was Fink, Dr. Fink in there as well, or in that particular one?
No, he wasn't there. He wasn't there for that one.
How did that feel for you? Obviously, you had been working with Sheila already. Had already played with anybody else in that room, like Wendy and Eric and those guys?
No, man, that was really my first time playing with, that side of the Prince world. I mean, we had the Bay Area side, me and Sheila, but the whole Minneapolis side, that was really kind of my first time, like, doing that kind of stuff. But Prince had been watching me. Prince would fly up to San Francisco a lot and sit in on our rehearsals.
Okay.
And, Prince is very intuitive, you know what I mean? He's paying attention to everybody and what they may be able to bring to the table or not bring it, So maybe, at our rehearsals, he said, I'm going to bring Levi to the sessions because I think he might be able to sit in on these sessions, So he's always planning stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you brought up the Bay Area, and I want to definitely get into that. So just going back a little bit. Well, first let me ask you this, as in joking. So you have the Minneapolis squad of people, and then you have Here Come the Bay. Who rocking the hardest? Well, how do I say it? I'll just let the facts speak for themselves. Okay. Okay.
If you go back and you look at all of the people that were inserted into that Minneapolis thing, it was a big percentage of it. I would say maybe 35-40% was from the Bay Area. I mean, when I'm talking about in his entire career.
Okay.
I mean, you got Larry Graham and Sheila, Miko, Bonnie, me. Who else? There's an organ player out here, Sandra Manning. At one point, he had the whole Sly and the Family Stone band, except for Sly.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, you remember when they did the New York show? Good Morning America, something like that, yeah. So, I don't know. And
then they recorded what, the first album out, first or second albums out there, I believe, right? It's also
yeah. He had a lot of love for the Bay Area. Yeah. He's always talked to me about the Bay Area. Tower Power. He loved David Garibaldi. He would just say, "Man, listen at this drummer, man." And then of course always Sly Stone, Santana. Of course the Escovedo family. So he had a lot of love for the Bay, man.
That's what's up. Talk to me about the Bay. You guys did bring a lot to the table. I would say, of course, in musicianship, of course, like in hip hop and a lot of different things. But what was it like for you? I mean, talk to me about Levi's, upbringing in the Bay. You're from Richmond. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Richmond, California.
California. How did you get into being a musician and playing? Did you start with the guitar?
Yes, sir. I started at the age of 6.
Wow.
My grandmother, she was one of the first female pastors in the area. Back then there was, they didn't want any females being pastors, but she was a pastor. Our church was called Green Pastor Church of God in Christ, and she was very progressive, man. She didn't want a quiet church, and she said, "Hey, when I was 6." She said, "Listen, I want electric music in my church." And so my cousin, his name is Eddie Hurt, and what she did is she started us off on cigar box guitars. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No.
So what they did in the South, they would get a cigar box, and they get two pieces of wood, and then they would string the tip of the wood to the box. So when you play the strings, it would reverberate inside of the box and actually create a tone. And so that was my first guitar. It was a cigar box.
Damn. Okay. I had never heard of it.
Yeah.
That's some. That's some.
Go back.
Yeah. That's some. That's some intuitive black stuff right there. That's how we get down.
Yeah. And then from there, she saved up some coins. Wasn't a lot of money going around back then.
Right.
And Radio Shack, they used to sell guitars, basses, and amps. So she went and purchased 2 guitars. And what she did is she took I don't know if you know much about guitar, but the heavy strings on the guitar, she put all of those on one of them, and then she strung up the other one like it's normally strung. So my cousin played bass on another guitar, and then I played guitar on the guitar. Wow. And we started, and she taught us 2 songs. You know, and they have very simple chords. It's kind of like the scene in the Ray Charles movie. Okay. When the little boy's watching the old guy, and the old guy's paying attention to him. He says, "Oh, you like music? Come on in here." You know, he says, "You know, it's only 3 notes you need to know." Right? That was the same thing for me. She's like, "Hey, you need these 3 chords," which was really the basics of the blues, and you take it from there. And so that's what happened, man.
Okay, wow.
That's how I got, kind of going. And then in church, we had a lot of ear training.
Okay.
So I mean, there was no music, music sheets, nothing like that. So what would happen? It might be a older lady in the church, and she'll just stand up and start singing, right? Mm-hmm. So you had to find the key she was in, and then figure out what the chord progression would be to accompany her singing, right? And if you didn't do it right, the church ladies with the big hats would slap you on the back of the head.
That's all the training you need.
Right. That's it. Let Brother Green play. You ain't ready yet, right? So, after 5 or 6 years of that, you get ready pretty quick.
Right. Yeah, sadly that's missing a lot these days, man. That whole what you just described right
there. Yeah. And then after that, I started playing in junior high. Okay. I didn't really tell anybody that I was a musician. I was kind of on the under. And then in high school, I joined my first band in my junior year. The band was called Pushin'. And the bass player is EQ, Eric Young from Confunction.
Wow, really?
Yeah, we were in the same band together called Pushin'. And from there, I started playing with Rosie Gaines. Okay. We had a little snap, and Rosie was pretty hot in the Bay back then, and so we did that for a year or 2, and then my first big break happened one night after Rosie's show. So this is it's about 1 a.m. I'm taking my stuff down, and I looked in the back, and I said, "Man, that guy looks like Don Cornelius." Man, but what would he be doing here in this small club in El Cerrito? It's called Earl's Solano Club. And so I'm looking, right? I'm like, man, that's him. So I'm walking closer, and I said, "Excuse me." I said, "You're Don Cornelius, right?" He said, "Yeah." And I said, "Man, oh, my God, what are you doing here, of all places?" And he said, "I come to hear you."
Wow.
And I said, "Really? How did you even hear about me?" He said, "Well, word been getting around that you play guitar pretty good, and I wanted to see for myself." And he said, "I had some business in town, but while I was here, I decided to come over." A lot of people don't know this, but Don was a music producer and wrote a lot of songs that came out during the heyday of Soultron.
Okay.
He was in cahoots with Dick Griffey, Soul Out Records and stuff. So he was very, very versed in music production and writing. So he put some bands together, and he wanted me to be part of the band. And so anyway, make a long story short, I guess that was my audition that night without knowing it.
Wow. Now, just to put things in context, what year frame is this? When is this? In the 80s, I'd imagine?
Oh, man. This is like 80, 81.
Okay, wow.
Somewhere up in there. Yeah.
And for the younger
I
listeners,
might be off a little bit.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, and for the younger listeners, Don Cornelius, the creator of Soul Train, which I hope that you've heard of. If you haven't, go look that up. But that name rings out.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure they know who
we're talking about. Man, a great man. He really helped a lot of people, man. So you can imagine, man, I'm just in shock that this is happening. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you a funny story. So at the time, I was working out at Chevron, the oil refinery.
Okay.
Right? I had a regular gig. I didn't want to be a starving musician, So I did, I wanted to play, but I wasn't going to starve.
I hear that.
So Don, he says, "Yeah, man, I got this band, and I want you to come up, and we're going to start, rehearsing pretty soon." And I'm hesitating, right? He's like, "You're not excited?" I said, yeah, I am, but I work a job. He said, you work? I said, yeah, man. I said, man, I'm not going to be no starving musician. And he started laughing. And he says, well, I'm sure whatever I'm paying you will be more than that. I said, I don't know about that. I work out at the oil refinery.
Okay.
I said, I'm making money where, adult money or to retirement money, And he started laughing. He said, you know what? He said, I'll match whatever your yearly salary is to get you started, just so you could try it.
Ooh.
Right? And on top of that, he gave me a little writing contract so I could start writing songs, So I'm like, I guess it don't get no better than that. So I took a chance.
Yeah,
so that was my first professional situation.
Wow. Now let me ask you, how did that feel though? Because I can understand, you working, you got a job, you got a good job, you got your benefits, you come, as us as black folk, we raised, go get that good job, all of that. But then you have your musician thing, you're doing your music thing, and here comes a situation. Obviously, Don Cornelius, but it's like, how did that feel to you, where you didn't know? Okay, I ain't got to get up tomorrow and go work for the man over here. I'm going over here and do my thing. And I'm curious too, like the work ethic. Like, how did you say, okay, I'm gonna be disciplined to do this?
Yeah, I had always been serious with the music because I started at 6.
Mm-hmm.
But I never got into music to make it. I just always loved it, and I said, no matter whether I'm working or not, I'm always going to play, and I always want to grow as a musician. But at around 16, I started getting to a little bit of recording, and I realized that if you're going to record, kind of like Prince, he recorded multiple instruments. I'm like, if I'm going to do that, I have to have discipline, and I got to kind of push myself to do it. So around 16, I really had that seared in my mind, like, hey, you can play. Talent is one thing, but you got to put in the work. Mm-hmm. It seems like when I would read stories, it was always the people who put in the work that got to the next level. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's very few stories of, man, I didn't really do much and everything just happened.
Right.
It's a few stories like that, but not many.
Yeah. What did your? I'm curious. What did your grandmother think of this this new thing coming into your life there?
Oh yeah, she she was excited about it, but back then the church was a lot different than it is now.
Right.
Everybody was like, "That's the devil's music." It's like they seen in Ray Charles where they're like, you can't take God's music and turn it into. It was a little bit of that, so it was a bittersweet reaction.
Okay.
But she was happy. She was happy about it. It was my father who really. He's not with me anymore, but it was my father who really. I had a conversation with him. I said, Dad, should I go do this? Because. I don't really want to be irresponsible about things. I'm excited about it. And he listened, and he said, well, let me tell you something. He said, you're going to do it because I didn't spend all those years listening to all of those bad notes while you were learning to play for you to get opportunity and say no. So you're going to do it, and then if something goes wrong, I got your back.
Wow. Okay.
We'll work that part out, and you're young. So... Because my father had dreams of doing things, and he didn't want to see me go down the same path.
Okay.
Because he had us relatively young, and he wanted to be an artist, but he had responsibility, so he had to push that to the side. Mm-hmm. So he said, "No, I'm not going to see that happen to you. So you got to do it, and I got your back."
That's amazing.
So if it wasn't for that conversation, I would have stayed at the job.
Wow. Yeah, shout out to your dad. I assume that's Levi Seacer Sr.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, I'm just curious because we're talking about parents and stuff. Do you have children yourself, kids?
Yes.
Okay.
I have 4 children.
Oh, okay. What's the ages real quick? You ain't got to say their names or nothing, but what age range?
Oh, yeah. From 15 to 34.
Oh, gee, okay. So you got some grown kids.
I laid a little seed.
I ain't mad at that. All right.
That's what they call it. Yeah, I love children, man.
That's what's up. So during this time, this was maybe around 81 or something. I'm curious, had heard of Prince yet at this point?
Okay, no, yeah, I heard of Prince. You know, there was a theater in the Bay Area called a Circle Star Theater. You know, the one that it keeps turning.
Okay.
You sit in one spot and the stage turns. That was my first time seeing Prince. He was opening up for Kool and the Gang. And it's funny that I ended up playing with him because my first impression of the Prince thing, I mean, he came out in underwear, right. And Andre Simone had clear pants on. Right. I mean, I hadn't seen anything like this. So I'm like, oh, my God, what the hell is this? You know, I mean, he sounded great, but I was like, I just wasn't, I was a church boy, you know.
Okay.
I'd never seen anything like that. So I never thought that I would end up playing with him. Now, but what happened after the Don Cornelius thing is, well, let me back up a little bit. After Rosie, I jammed with Sheila for a few years in the club before she was Sheila E. And then during that time, she left and she went on tour with Lionel Richie. And then she hooked up with Prince and did Glamorous Life album. Now, right after that, in between Glamorous Life and Romance 1600, she was in San Francisco. I hadn't seen her in a while, right? So I stopped over and I'm like, hey, Sheila, I'll just come over and say hi. And that particular day, she was auditioning for new band members. So she had to replace a few people. So I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, she's like, yeah, just sit with me. Let's listen at some of these players, right? So I'm there for about an hour, and she says, man, I'm not getting what I want, you know. And so at the time, she was auditioning bass players. And so she said, you know, just for me, I heard you play a little bit of bass because I'm not getting what I want anyway. So just audition for me on bass. Because she only know me as a guitar player, right? So I'm like, oh, Sheila, you know. Oh, okay. So I just went up there, right? I kind of knew the feel she was looking for. Prince has a very, like, if you listen to Prince records, the groove on the record is very specific.
Right.
You know, the way he lays his funk down, right? So I kind of understood that kind of funk. So I went up there, and the song was Love Bazaar, because that's one. It's like, that song has this kind of like, we call it rumbling bass sound. Okay. So I went up there, and so she says, okay, auditions are over. And she says, listen, I know you play guitar, but I need a bass player right now, and that's the sound I'm looking for. Would you do it? And I'm like, oh, I mean, you know, of course I said yes, you know. Sheila's my girl. And so I'm like, okay, so that's how I got into her band.
Wow. Now, let me ask you this. Hopefully you can clear this up. I love like Raphael Sadiq and Tony and all that. Were they also in this band or at some point playing with Sheila as well?
Yeah, that's the next step. So, okay. So now I'm in Sheila's band, and then she had me do the auditions after that because we needed, we were looking for drummer and, we're looking for drummers and keyboards. Now the time, like we have to really sit down and like really nail the timeline. But, so anyway, you know, when I joined Sheila's band, I was in the band for like a year and a half, and that's when Raphael and them came in the band. So we had the second audition.
Okay.
So, so what happened was, so I'm doing auditions, and now I'm back. I'm on guitar, and so so Raphael comes in, and Tim, and then their cousin, Carl Wheeler. Carl Wheeler is a bad organ player. Yeah, he plays for Maze now. Okay. So he just came. They said, "Oh, can our cousin audition too?" And I'm like, "Sure." So man, I didn't know really what to expect, man. So they said, "Oh, the other thing," they said, "Can we all audition together?" And I'm like, "Sure." Man, they came up and nailed it, dude.
Okay.
And it was like 100 people there that day coming for different positions. And so after they played, I'm like, oh, auditions are over. I went upstairs. Sheila was doing some business or something. I said, Sheila, she said, what you doing up here so quick? I said, oh, it's over. We got the 3 cats.
Wow.
And she said, are you sure? Because there's a lot of people out there. I said, come on down. Give me 10 minutes. I think we're done. So I kicked off Love Bazaar, man. They came in. It was greasy, man. and that's how they got in.
Wow. Now,
and then
go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so during this period, and I'm trying to piece a lot of things, and I want to get that timeline together too. So you guys was jamming Love Bazaar. This was before or after Romance 1600 came out? After. And then, okay, so let me ask you this, and you can give me the timeline. There is a video, the Romance 1600, that home video was the concert. I remember it came on MTV at one time. And at the end of that video, Prince comes up with the Revolution, and you guys do Love Bazaar. So,
right, yeah. Now, at that time, Raphael and they were not in the band at the time. When I say they auditioned on the song, that was just a standard thing no matter what the time period was.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying? So I was still on bass at that time.
So,
and then they came in right after that.
I got you. Well, just to go back to that Love Bazaar performance, though. Now, again, as a fan, I was sitting at home. I was a young boy watching that when they came on MTV. Blew me away. I was like, whoa, what the... Prince, they crazy. What's going on here? Y'all did the wooden leg and this and that and the third. What was that like for you guys? It looked like the melding of 2 bands together on stage. It was Revolution and Sheila's band. I mean, how did you guys? I assumed y'all rehearsed all of that beforehand.
We rehearsed everything. We very seldom that we just get up there and just start jam. We do that jamming in the studio or rehearsal, but not on stage. Prince didn't go out like that. It's got to be tight.
Right.
Yeah. So it was incredible, man. I was pinching myself the whole time. I'm like, oh my God. I mean, this is actually happening.
And Miko was in you guys' band too, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yep. Miko Weaver.
Man, he is a cold
funk meister.
Yeah, man. Woo. Many of stuff.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's another Bay Area talk.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So, then you guys said you had Raphael and them in the band. Now, did you guys go out on that Japan tour together? Was that?
Yes, we did. Yeah, we were opening up for Prince. And some say that was sort of our audition for Sign of the Times.
Okay.
So, because I was, so it was me, Bonnie Boyer, and Sheila, and he pulled us into the Sign of the Times band.
Yes. All right.
Yeah, but.
Yeah, and getting into that, so that's my era. That's when I really was like, my eyes were so open, my ears was open. Going into the Sign of the Times band stuff, and also Madhouse, right? Talk to me about, I guess this would be the 16 album. You was on that too, right? You were part of that group. What was the process? What was the sessions like on that for that album?
At that time, we were all pretty comfortable with working with Prince. So you're over the nervous jitters and things like that. And Prince, he trusted us to just do whatever we do. If he didn't like something, he would, he say, hey, try it like this, try. So it was a very open session. And we all sat around and, I'm like, oh, I have an idea. Or Prince was like, oh, I got this idea. Eric would come or something. And we just kept working until we got the project done. I mean, most of that stuff came together within a week,
Really?
It wasn't a long period of time, no. Because we were recording all the time. That's what a lot of people don't know is, we'd have these, 10-hour rehearsal days But after that, we do at least another 4 or 5 hours of recording per day. Mm. So recording was just like drinking water. You know, I mean, really, we did it that often. It was that regular, you know.
And
you it was very comfortable.
Okay, you talked about the nervous jitters. What was that? Just actually playing with Prince and he's in there, or what is that? What do you mean by that?
I mean, it was. I mean, I'm just saying we got past that. You know, anytime you get in a new situation, and especially when you're dealing with somebody who's like, sometimes, man, I sit back and watch Prince. I'm like, how is it possible that one person could have this much talent? Mm. I mean, in every area. I mean, singing, dancing, playing, writing, and you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And you have to imagine that you're sitting there and you're watching it, and he's doing it so effortlessly. And it's just, I mean, he's writing songs. I mean, he'll write, hit songs in an hour or two and record them, So it was a little mind-boggling. So what it was, it wasn't nervous like a talent show nervous. It was more like, I hope that I can play at a level that he's satisfied with.
I got you. What was it like? Yeah. So leading up to the Sign of the Times, putting that new band together, and back then it was a new everything, right? The look was different, the clothing, mm-hmm. The sound of the music. You guys had that legendary, sort of dress rehearsal performance that, for us hardcore fans, we know that word for word, the performance, we watched the bootlegs and this and that. What was that, if you can remember that night at First Avenue, what was that night for you guys to actually be the first time playing it out in front of a big audience, that Sign of the Times sort of show?
That night was incredible. Now, in hindsight, I was so happy when we actually got past the night, because when you gotta understand, like when we came to Minneapolis from San Francisco, there were a few musicians in Minneapolis that were, they were kind of hurt behind that. Because, a lot of cats were like, they felt like, hey, you know me, I should be next in line to be in your next band. And you go all the way to San Francisco and pull some cats instead of us, so they better be good. You know what I mean? It's like, man, they gotta blow our socks off. So when I started to sign the time rehearsals, man, like, I'll give you a funny story. So I went out, I want to see, where's First Avenue? I'm kind of a tourist too, So I go on to First Avenue, and I'm a country dude. Man, I had on some plaid shirt, just regular clothes. So I walk in there, and I'm like, hey, is that Prince over there? Because everybody dressed like Prince. I'm like, is that Vanity Sick? I mean, what, And it was just regular people dressing like, and I'm like, oh my God. So I'm kind of in the corner, right, I was like, I love cranberry juice. So I'm in the corner drinking my cranberry juice, and I can hear, some of the bandmates mumbling. They're like, man, who's this Levi guy?
Really?
Man, I should be doing the bass gig. And blah, blah. It was just healthy competition. Man, Prince should have gave me a shot and the whole thing. And I'm like, oh my God, let me keep my butt at home, right? Or at the hotel until we play.
Wow.
So anyway, after we played, a lot of musicians came up and said, man, you know what? I was a little salty and a little hot, but y'all pretty good, man. So good luck with the tour and everything. Mm. And I was like, oh, thanks, man. Because there was a little tension there for a minute.
Really? Interesting. I'm trying to put the names together in my mind. Like, who was over there hating? But now I hear what you're saying. So,
yeah.
That, and you guys had, and just to shout people, you had Bonnie, Sheila, Dr. Fink was still in the group, Miko.
Right,
Eric Lee, Alana Bliss.
Alana Bliss.
He had Kat.
Yeah.
Kat. Yeah, I think that's everybody. I mean, and that was a very different sounding band than the Revolution. What you guys brought to the table was very different than the Revolution. In your opinion, what did you think was, what was like the differences, some of the differences sonically and, and everything between the two bands?
Prince was at that time. How do I say? I want to say this correctly. Like, he wanted to get into a lot of different forms of music. Because, Prince as a musician, I mean, he's just, every year he's growing. So at the time, he wanted something a little, I think we were a little closer to a Sly and the Family Stone type of sound.
Okay.
But with, not side sound, but that influence. Of course, Prince is the master there, directing all of this. But a little bit of that, but we got into blues, jazz, fusion, jazz fusion, playing a lot of really complicated arrangements. And so, and he mentioned that. He says, I'm trying to really push the band to go to these, different areas, these different levels. And so he felt like he could do that with us.
Right. Okay. And I'd imagine you guys must have played together all the time, because one thing that always stands out to me when I listen to some of the stuff is it seemed like, and I think I can point to the that New Year's Eve performance with like Miles Davis, and one of the things that jumped out to me during the sort of the longer jam part, right after Miles left the stage and when he was up there, it almost seems like you guys had all these little things Prince could call out, and you guys would jump into just these little grooves or different little things, rumble, young man, rumble, and just all these different little things. I was like, man, how many like little things he got in his back pocket that the band, you guys obviously just knew to just like bop. You could go into this, and the groove would change, and you bop back into this. Talk to me about in terms of the rehearsal and just watching Prince on stage and knowing when to, jump into things. How much of that? I mean, how much work was that to get to be that tight, I guess?
Well, we all had a little bit of training with that. Okay. But when we got with Prince, though, he really used like whatever we knew, and then on top of that, he added a whole bunch of stuff. Because for Prince, and he always said this in his interviews, the bar for him was never the current artists that were out. The bar for him was James and, Sly and them and Fleetwood Mac and all, the classic groups.
Right.
That was always the bar for him, not what was going on current. So he told us, like, hey, y'all listen to all of the new records, that's cool. But in here, we're always going to be sort of a little old school, and I'm going to teach you guys how to play that way and perform that way. So even if we didn't have one light, one of, the show lamps and stuff, even if we didn't have that to show us within us, we don't need a bunch of, we had a stage, we had stages, very elaborate stages, but that's why he could go to a club and be just as entertaining, because the show was always in him. And so in order to have it like that, you got to practice, and you got to go over and over things so that everything is just second nature. But of course, Prince had, for example, on any given song, he had like 4 or 5 keys that could totally rearrange any given song.
Okay.
And we had to watch that while we were playing. It wasn't the easiest thing in the world to do, man. He had something like he clicked his heels to try, and I mean like to repeat something, or he hold his fist in the air, we get ready to stop, and of course the on the ones and all that, and then he would do this like wave hand, like it's like a wave motion with his hand, and then that meant to insert an arrangement that he had given us at rehearsal.
Wow.
But we don't always do it like that. So if you do that wave the hand, you gotta, and so it was, I don't even know how I remembered all that stuff back then.
Now, did being Doc help you remember certain things? Or the fear of being Doc, did that help people remember?
No, when you're a little younger, you can retain things more.
I got you.
But it was really all of the practice, and then, Prince was like, I remember one time, it was the very first show I did with him. And I told him, I said, hey, good luck tonight. He said, don't say that. I said, well, what, did I say something wrong? He said, it's not about luck. He said, we're going to do a good show because we practice.
I like that.
If you gotta rely on luck, then we're in trouble.
That's a T-shirt right there.
You know what? Yeah, that makes some sense there. So I always embrace that. And he said another thing. Oh, because one night, man, we did like a 3-hour show, and then he said, and we like at the end of the show, I'm trying to describe the feeling I had. I wasn't physically tired, but my brain was exhausted from, I'm like, okay, we got through all of it. And Prince laughed at all of us one night. He said, oh, you guys tired, huh? Uh-huh. He said, but let me tell you something. The show ain't about us. The show is for them. He said, I don't really care if you guys are having fun. I said, what? He said, I don't really care because it's not about that. He said, I don't always have fun on stage. I'm not here to have fun. I'm here to be excellent at my craft and to entertain the audience and perhaps, when they leave, they kind of lifted their spirits a little higher. And I said, you know what? You're right. It's not really about us. Our mission is to entertain the audience and make them feel better about things, And so he was just, it's hard to play at that level, but when you do it, it's very satisfying.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And you realize you're just not up there just hitting a bunch of notes. All this stuff's supposed to mean something.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, he was a real one. He said, it ain't about how we feel.
Oh man. Oh yeah, no joke, man. Yeah.
So the Sign of the Times. We have to move forward a little bit, but the Sign of the Times show was so spectacular, and you guys had the stage, and of course, you ended up doing the movie and all that stuff. But one of the big things that I always was bummed out at, as a fan here in America, y'all didn't get to come to the States to do that. I'm just curious, you as a band member, were you ever like sort of longing to like, man, I can't wait to take this on the road in the States?
Yeah, but I'll tell you something that's weird, but I swear it's true. Because people, like many years after that, they say, you know what, you guys never played the States. And, I had to think about that for a second. I'm like, oh, we didn't. You're right. And man, because we were playing so much, I was losing track of time. Or what tour we were on, because we just going. And it didn't hit me till like, I played 7-8 years later. I'm like, wow, that's right. We never toured the States with the Sign of the Times show. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, that would have been a good thing for everyone to see in the States, because it was one of my favorite shows.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
What was it like? Now, again, I don't know how it works and how you guys may obviously be hearing music way before we, the fans, got to hear it. But at whatever point the Love Sexy album is coming into play, and obviously that's sort of skipping over things like the Black Album and other things that probably were happening.
Yeah.
But what was that like when it was like, okay, here's what the stage is going to look like, and we got to work on this one? Did you see that as a huge sort of like, whoa, or was this like, okay, this is another thing we got to learn and let's get into it?
No, that was a whoa moment there, because we had great production, but that Prince, like we took a break and he says, yeah, that's what I'm thinking about for the next tour, and it's going to be in the round, and he was telling us how he's going to have a car drive around. And, that was his dad had a Thunderbird like that. Mm-hmm. So he said, I'm going to make a 3/4 scale model, and it's going to actually drive around. I'm like, whoa. And so we were really blown away with that. And another thing, a side note, that I think is important, if we did a 6-month tour, we usually rehearse 6 months. In the Sign of the Times 3-month tour, we rehearse 3 months. I don't know. I don't know many people who do it like that, but that's how it was.
Wow, 6 months of practicing, rehearsing. Whatever. And
Yeah.
how many times, obviously during that time, there had to be a lot of changes. You know, I think I heard Eric Lee say that, you know, you would come in and do it one way and then like you might come the next day and it could be.
Oh, yeah.
Different.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing. So I remember on every tour, so like Side of Times, 3 months rehearsal, the second day of the tour, Prince was like, okay, I got a bunch of notes. We need to change some stuff. Right? Now, we got this, you know, we were rehearsing for 3 months to do this show, and we're like, what? You going to change a bunch of stuff? And because he watched the entire show every night. Mm. And then he would come with pages of notes. He's like, okay, on song 5, take out the second chorus. And you got to remember this stuff, right? Edit, take that out. Okay, on song 10, I wrote a new part for that. Here, you ready? Here we go. Wow. And we're like, okay. I mean, it's like 17 of these things. And we got to do it, make the changes that night. Mm. And not only for the band. So any music changes we made, that meant the sound guys, the lighting guys, stage props, everything.
Wow.
And we're doing this every day of the tour. Oh man, you know.
That's a lot, man.
I'm telling you, man. And this is just the show, right? Then we had a club set. You know, we play after shows. Yeah, so it was intense, man.
So you guys are operating at such a high level at this point to be going on all cylinders, being able to be flexible to, you know, rearrange things. I mean, you just brought up the after shows. I wanted to get into that. Like, so doing a show like Love Sexy and then coming back hours later that same night to do another blowout jam session. How did you keep up the stamina, you know, going for that? And maybe it goes back to what you said. Prince told you it ain't about how you feel.
Oh yeah, and then I had another duty to do. I did, you know, Prince didn't do no interviews.
Okay.
So guess who did his interviews? I did his interviews.
Oh wow, okay.
So, you know what I mean? So we do the show, the regular tour show, then the after show, and then I'd have to get up at, you know, 5:30 in the morning and get down to the radio station in town to do the interview. And then sound check is at 2:00. So, I don't really know how any of us did it, man.
Wow. But y'all did it though.
Mhm. Yeah.
And of course, some of the you know, after shows of this period are legendary out here in these streets. I would imagine, I'm sure you have heard of these, but the one, I don't know if you remember the one, is that the Trojan, I believe? They call it Small Club, different things over the years. But I mean, there was, you know, Just My Imagination was playing that. Still Would Stand All Time. Do you remember playing a lot of these after shows? And do you remember, like, I guess ask, are you aware of how fans listen to those and praise those shows?
Yeah, now I am.
Okay.
It wasn't, like I said, man, it was like, man, I felt like I was in an Avengers movie. You know how they can play with time? You know, they can go back in time. And
right.
Like, man, a lot of stuff I didn't really realize until maybe 10 years later. I talked to fans and stuff, and they're like, man, this show and this show. And I forgot that we had actually played a lot of these shows. Mm. And they playing this stuff, and then I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember that night. I remember that too. And then they had copies of things I never heard. You know, we play it and leave town, but they were making archives of this type of stuff. Mm-hmm. So it was very eye opening for me that the after shows had that kind of an impact. I thought. Yeah,
man. I studied them bad boys, boy. There's one part. There was one part that's Miko. It's you and Miko. And Prince say something like, "Miko, give me the Crips" or something like that. And then he's like, all right, Levi, I want you to rumble with that. And, all right, Prince. I was like, damn, them brothers.
Yeah, it's pretty special time though.
And another thing too that always stood out to me was as I started to see kind of you moving, like I remember like when I want to say it was the Batman album came out, and you start to see your name was, co-produced, co-production or something. I remember, I think it was the song Sex, if that's what it was, like a B-side. And I think it said they was either co-written or co-produced by Levi. I was like, oh shit, Levi. Now he's, bro, stepping up, he's leveling up. And what was that? Started getting into doing production for some of these other artists that are coming through and stuff.
Well, I had actually been doing production and writing almost literally from the beginning. It's just nobody really knew about it until later. Like, Sheila's third album, she had that song Touch Me and Love on a Blue Train and Honeyman and all that kind of stuff. Like Prince did half that record and we did the other half. And then, of course, all of the Flesh sessions. I mean, Prince.
Let me stop you right there. I'm going to stop you right there for a second. Go back to that Sheila record. Excuse me. Which songs did you said Honeyman? Honeyman is my cut. Now, did you wrote that or you played on that?
Yeah, I wrote it and played on that. Yeah. So me and Sheila kind of wrote that.
Woo.
Yeah. And Windy Like a River, Soul Salsa.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Eddie Minifield wrote that "Touch Me" song with her, and
that was like a big hit. That was a big hit back then.
Yeah, it did okay. Yeah. So, I mean, we were doing, so the writing thing has always kind of been there, but then now Prince told me, man, like when I joined his band, because this is like after the Flesh sessions and all that stuff. He said, "Yeah, I see that you like to produce and write." He said, "So this is my offer to you." He said, "Listen," and he had made me his MD at the time. So he says, "Okay, so you got to get all the rehearsing done. That's your regular job, and you're the MD. You got to take care of the band." Now, an hour after we finished every night, Prince he'd have dinner, and then he'd say, "I'll be in the studio. If you want to write songs and produce with me, I'll see you there. If I don't see you there, then I know that you don't want to do that." So the first time I'm sitting there waiting on him. He said, "Oh, okay." And so we did a lot of material actually. Stuff on the Graffiti Bridge album with the time. Of course, the Madhouse stuff. We did some Japanese artists. I mean, it was a lot of tunes. I'd say like maybe 30 songs that I was able to over the years collectively. I mean, all of them went hits and stuff, Sexy MF and stuff. So we, you know what I mean? So I was blessed to meet somebody like him that would just be that generous, man. Right. And because, Prince don't need no help, man.
Right.
Right. He don't need no help. That was clear to me. He can do this by himself. So I was just honored to okay, man, whatever you need me to do. But yeah, so that was a whole nother thing of, really pushing yourself because, man, Prince, man, we wouldn't get out of the studio till 5 or 6 in the morning. And then rehearsal was like 11 o'clock the next day.
Jeez.
So it was intense, It's like, man, when do you get time to wash your clothes and go to the bank? Wow. So.
And, so some of the songs that is kind of jumping out, you mentioned the time. So were you doing Shake?
I did Release It.
Release It, okay. That's what I'm thinking.
And a song called Love Machine.
Love Machine, okay. Yep. The Love Machine.
Yeah. I co-wrote those two with Prince on that particular album. Mm-hmm.
And just
Diamonds and Pearls.
Diamonds and Pearls, yeah. But just real quick, since you brought up Graffiti Bridge, in your recollection, or experience. What was it like, that whole process of making that movie and stuff?
Oh man, I was in the classroom on that one because here I am watching a movie made from start to finish, from concept to the end. So I'm like, wow, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of pieces to make something like that happen. So it was a great experience for me, man. But like I say, I wasn't really in classroom mode. I'm just like, wow, trying to put all this together, how all this is done, Wow.
And during the, I guess maybe the editing of that movie, you guys sort of transition into the nude tour, right? And
yeah,
even with that, it's more lineup changes. But I'm curious, going back to your original work with Rosie Gaines, how does it come about that here now Rosie's in the band? Did you have a hand in that as well?
Yeah, I did. So let me go back a little bit. After the Love Sexy tour, that band sort of disbanded, and there was a period of time. Prince was like, "Okay, Levi, we need a new band," and so I'm like, "Okay, let me put some feelers out." Actually, even with Michael Bland, I had a little bit of a hand in that. So I went down to Bunkers, and so I'm sitting there, and I remember Dennis Chambers was down there. He was in town. So I said, oh, yeah, I'm going to go check out Dennis Chambers, right? Mm-hmm. And, Dennis Chambers was killing it, right? And I turned my back for about 15 minutes, and then I noticed the drums, something about the drums had changed. I turned around, Michael Bland was on the drums. I didn't even know him at the time. And I said, oh, my God, he was murdering the drums, man. Murdering. And so I went back the next day. I said, Prince, man, dude, I know who our next drummer is, man. I know who he is. And, man, just go down to Bunkers and check him out. He said, Levi, man, I ain't got time to be, I said, I'm telling you, that's our drummer, man. You're going to love this cat. So he went down there and checked him out. Next day, he's like, yep, you're right. That's him.
Wow.
So we had a drummer. So then Prince told me, he said, now you remember I was on bass with Love Sexy and Sign of Time. So Prince was like, hey, you can go back to guitar if you want because I'm going to bring Sonny in. So now we got bass, guitar, and drums. And then Matt was there for a little bit. Oh, yeah, Matt was there for a little bit. That's another story. So anyway, I started thinking about the female presence, and I say, man, now Prince kind of had a little bit of a bad taste in his mouth from the Bonnie thing.
Why so?
It was, that's a really long story, but basically, with any bands that you join, there's always some internal problems and some things that maybe shouldn't have went down the way they did. Mm. And so he was like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I want to have another female in the band like that, So I said, man, but this female, I'm telling you, man, you got to hear. I'm telling you, she ain't Aretha Franklin, but pretty close. Mm. Mm-hmm. And he said, really? And he said, I don't know. Well, let me check her out. So what I did is I called Rosie and I said, okay, I got an audition for you. I said, but you can't let Prince down because that's my friend, right? He trusted me to audition you and the whole thing. So, long story short, I fly her to Minneapolis, and I said, I go up to Prince's apartment. I said, she's here. And he says, okay, this is what I want you to do. He had just written some songs. I'm trying to remember what the name of the songs were. But they were written for a female. He said, have her sing on those and when you're done, bring it up to here, bring it back to me so I can, check her out. Because he didn't want to meet anybody before he knew what their talent level was. Right? So I take Rosie in the studio, right? Man, she killed both songs in about 25 minutes, which is unheard of, right? So I go back up to Prince. He said, "Why you back so quick?" I said, "Man, we knocked it out, man. I told you she was bad." Right? So we put on the tape, and you should have seen his eyes, man. He's like, "That voice is in my studio right now." He said, "I'm going to say it again. That voice is in my studio? Are you kidding me?" He's like, "Oh, my God." And then he's like, "Okay, but is she going to be cool? Because she can definitely sing, man, but I don't want to be going through no problems." And I said, "No, she cool, man. Well, come down and meet her and stuff." And, so ever since that time, he loved her, man. And, the rest is history.
Wow. Okay. Man, you bringing people
and then
together.
Prince went and got Tommy because he caught Tommy on another night down in Bunkers, and he really liked him. So, yeah. So
I'm curious, had you...
So that was the next...
Were you... Did you know Sonny T beforehand? I had heard of him?
No.
Oh, okay.
I heard of him because Prince told me. He said, Sonny was the one that really, like, Prince was always a great musician, but Sonny and, like, let me just put this out here. Sonny and Michael, like, those are two musicians from a whole nother planet, man. I don't even know how to explain it. Their knowledge, and they both have perfect pitch. Their musical knowledge is beyond normal musicians. Mm. And they're like Avengers, okay? I'm serious, man. Like, they come from another planet, but it's, So anyway, Prince told me, he said, "Man, Sonny really pulled some things together for me as far as guitar and bass, and so I want to give him a shot." So, yeah. So I hadn't known Sonny, but I heard of him because Prince used to talk about him a lot.
Okay. And, I know I would ask you, too. I think this might have... I don't know if this was just before this or when this was happening, but you guys also performed on Saturday Night Live where you did Electric Chair, but you guys also had Patrice Rushen and, was it Margie Cox? Was she up there? Was that like
yeah, and Candy Dolfer, too.
Was that like... Was that going to be a band at one point, or was that just a one-off type of thing?
Man, it was a strong contender.
Okay.
I didn't know how it was going to end up, but yeah, we were kind of heading that way for a second, and then I don't really know why it didn't continue, but we were definitely heading that way.
Was there well, I assume there was a lot of rehearsals with that configuration, or?
I mean, we rehearsed all the time, so
Oh, okay.
That was just a normal thing. Rehearsal, like I said, like drinking water.
Okay.
Yeah, but we were heading that way for a second. I mean, Prince started to try stuff. Like, I wonder what it sound like if we put this element and that element. So it's that kind of a thing.
Were there any other players or people came through that ended up not being in it, but was like sort of, let's see what it feels like, that you can remember?
No. That was pretty much it as far as, my time period.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then another thing that happens too, and I'm curious about this, how do you transition from being in the band to, going to, you transition to like on the executive level, right, where you become the president of MPG Records? Well, can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, that was an interesting time period. Me and Prince had talked, and I had already been through like 2 or 3 bands at that point. And so Prince was like, "Man, what do you think about maybe the executive stuff?" And I said, "Well, I never really did that kind of stuff. I am curious about it." I said, "I mean, is that something you would like me to like explore?" And he says, "I'm thinking about it." And he said, "Don't worry about the music thing because we're always gonna record like we've always been doing, and then and then you're gonna play. You come sit in with us, I know because I know you'll miss that. But man, I really need that right now." And then I'm transitioning to the new band and the whole thing. And so anyway, long story short, I said, okay. And of course, you know, man, I was just a student, but I tried to surround myself around people who've done that kind of stuff, and they gave me a lot of pointers. And then, you know, and at the end of the day, it's still Prince's company, you know. So he taught me a lot of things, and he got some training for me and the whole thing. But that's basically how that happened.
And this is, as I assume, this is after Diamonds and Pearls and the Symbol album?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And those albums, you know, Diamonds and Pearls, very successful album. Like y'all killed that whole, the whole rollout and all the singles and the videos and everything. That was insanity, man. We'll go back. I want to go back to Diamonds and Pearls for a minute. That album, obviously, that's what really, you know, Tony M. and is, you know, very prominent, and just it's again a different sound, right, on record, on stage, visually is different. When y'all dropped Get Off, for instance, to me that was such a groundbreaking thing for Prince, because I was like, you know, he kind of dibbled and dabbled with hip hop and, you know, trying to get that together. But when you dropped that one, and I was totally into hip hop at the time. I was rapping and all this stuff, so I really was paying attention. But I'm a super Prince fan, and I had to give it up. I was like, damn, oh boy, he done it. Like this is he got it. Right. He got it for himself. It makes sense. It sounds authentic. He's doing this thing. I'm curious, when y'all was working on that, did that record go through some different changes to get to that sound? That was
it did actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Prince used to have this saying, you know, he's very competitive, so he would say, "We can do what y'all can do, but y'all can't do what we can do."
Okay.
You know what I mean? So when you apply that to whatever music is going on at the time, you know, he would listen to things and he'd go, "Okay, but I'm going to do my version of what y'all trying to do."
Trying to do.
Well, and he didn't mean it in a bad way. He just felt like, hey, you know, I'm a musician and I work at my craft, and I want to make sure my craft is always in what I do. You know, some real playing and things like that. So, you know, so that's really what that was. He was trying to find a balance between that, you know, just the real playing and the hip hop world.
Okay.
With a Prince twist on it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and that's how I would describe that song.
And in terms of like the production and working on that album, was a lot of that stuff, I mean, I'm talking not necessarily how it sounded. It may sound one way, but I'm curious on the actual recording. Was that a lot of band participation and doing those actual songs that sound like they're band songs? Are they really band playing songs?
Yeah. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's one thing he did. He did involve the band a lot in the records. I mean, you got a drummer like Michael Bland. You got to use that. Yeah. You know. Yeah. So, there was a lot of band stuff in there. Yeah, definitely for sure.
Okay. And then, like, you know, the next one y'all came with Sexy MF, and I remember that. I was just like, man. And he really had that James feel to it. But my understanding is did that album kind of start with you a little bit? I mean, I assume that is you saying sex. At first, I always thought that was Prince, but that's you singing that sexy mother. Is that you?
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, the story behind that is this is how that song came together. So during the tour, I'm all kind of a class clown. Me and Morris, we'd be clowning all the time, you know. So after the shows, I would say, "We some sexy motherfuckers." I would just be singing that, right? And I did that for a couple months, right? And then when we got off the tour, we were in the studio recording like we normally do. Prince like, "Hey, you know that line you be singing after the tour?" "Yeah, I want to work on that today." So he said, "Okay, just remember what you sang, and I'll tell you where you're going to sing it at." And then we got in the studio, we came up with the groove, you know, the beat and stuff, and he said, put some chicken grease on it. So, I'm playing them little James chord. So he put the bass line on it, and then we go, bump, bump, bump. He said, sing it right here. And that's how that came together.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And that video, man, is hilarious because that was you. You was like the bad guy or something. Or I don't know if the bad guy, but I don't know what y'all was playing, but y'all was clowning hard at the beginning of that video. And what was the whole thing with the Aunt Esther fan, pictures of her and the fan there? What was that all about?
I mean, that's us being very playful.
Okay.
We were fans of the comedy back then and Red Fox. Now, I mean, we all grew up on that kind of stuff, and we just thought it'd be cool to like, man, we need to have some church fans with Aunt Esther's face on it, And in Prince's world, you got resources where if you think of something and he likes it, you can make it happen. And next thing we know, we got a whole bunch of church fans with Aunt Esther's face on it.
Wow. Okay.
And the fans like, oh, this is cool, I mean, if you think about Prince, is like he's very intense, but he's very funny.
He seemed like
he's very funny. Man, he'll have you dying, man. And so, we did a lot of little things like that. So, but that was fun.
And I got one other weird fan question. Now I'm thinking about it. There was the Cream, like 12-inch release or whatever, maxi single. I used to date myself. Mm-hmm. But throughout that, there was like these conversations, like somebody was calling somebody on the phone. I assume you know what I'm talking about. Do you remember?
I'm going back.
It was like I don't know who it was speaking, but they were like talking about Prince. He's like, he just make limousine music, and they're calling somebody on the phone, and then it would be segue with that between the music. I always wonder what was that. I assume it was some inside thing, but I don't know. You might
it was on the maxi single or the album.
No, it was on a maxi single, like a 12-inch. It was for Cream, the one for Cream.
Okay. You know what? I got to go back and listen at that. Okay. But I'm sure it was Prince's idea, whatever it was.
It was hilarious. So I was always trying to understand what was it referencing, because it seemed like it was so inside. I didn't know what the hell. It was just that it was funny. It sounded like a clown on some older person or something, but I don't know. But
okay. Yeah, I got to pull that back up. But were they talking about Tootsie Pops and things like that?
Nah, I just remember he was like Prince. It was like somebody who knew Prince from back in the day or something. He was like, he done changed now. He does limousine music or something. He ain't,
Oh, okay. Oh, was it based off of that Bob George voice?
No, not at all.
No, not at all. Okay, yeah. I got to listen at that, man. I hit you back up on that.
Okay, yeah. They had some cuts on there. Was you guys had like a remix of Cream? It was like Do Your Dance. Do your dance.
Oh yeah,
that was tight.
Man, those maxi singles was like albums, man.
Yeah, man. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. And so, and that was another thing. And I had some people who were asking some questions online that wanted to ask. Going back to the 3 Chains of Gold. That home video thing that you guys had put out. In that video, the kind of storyline, it was some of the stuff was like you guys were kind of wondering like what was Maite's role in the group and this and that. I'm assuming that was just all for theatrics or were you? What did you guys? You know what I'm talking about? Was that for theatrics or was that a real conversation that the band members were having?
I'll say this without giving everything away. I'll say about half and half. Some of it was scripted, but some of it was real.
Okay, all right.
It's kind of like when you watch Purple Rain. Some stuff you like it's based on fact. Right? It might be embellished a little bit, but it's kind of based on fact a little bit.
I got you.
So it's that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Say no more.
Yes, sir.
Well, let's bring things up to the present. No, I wanted to ask you. This is a lot of people were asking me to ask you this, and hopefully you can speak on it. If you can't, I can respect that. Why or what sort of made you, or how did you transition from, being with the Prince camp and then, moving out of that situation?
That for me, to make a long story short, it's kind of like, I understood Prince, like, when Prince is a very creative person. In order to be creative, your environment needs to change. Sometimes the people around you, and I'm also like that too. In my home studio, man, I'm constantly buying new pictures, painting stuff. I needed to change or evolve or do something. And there comes a point, I have been there for a minute. A lot of the bands, I'm at the office and the whole thing. And I'm like, it's probably time to go. Just to see, because I felt like it was graduation, It's not really about learning new things. I wanted to take those things and see what I could get into after that.
Okay.
And also, it's hard to say goodbye in a situation like that. I love Prince, man. Mm-hmm. And but I think we both knew it's like, it's kind of like time to end this, but we don't really know how to end it. But with blessings, that kind of thing. So that's basically what it was in a nutshell. And, then I, went on work with Child of Blackness and do some stuff with Jimmy and Terry and then Vinci Raphael and the Tonys and Jody Watley. All these type of things happen afterwards, But it's kind of a mutual thing. But it was weird because we were good friends also. And then how do you say bye? So that's basically in a nutshell.
All right. It's funny. A lot of people I've asked of, their time with Prince and they, when they leave Prince, I've heard that same sort of thing. Was like, I wasn't really learning. It wasn't too much for me to learn in that situation no more. And, it was time to move on type of thing.
And that's called graduation. Okay. That's all it is. It's like, do you have children?
I do. Yes, I do. Yes, sir.
Yeah, the greatest feeling any parent can have is that their child can leave one day and be self-sufficient.
Okay.
And take the things that you taught them. That to me, that should be the goal.
Right.
If you've done your parenting right, you will create a self-sufficient adult.
Okay.
And then they're going to have their experiences and whatever. And you still talk to them sometimes, but they kind of making their own mark. And that's what it's kind of about. That's kind of, I think, where the new power generation is now, we started working on some new material, and so now we have to take what we learned from Prince and say, okay, what can we do?
And speaking of that, you guys are new material. Do you guys feel like the pressure, on making that new music? Like it's got to be, this or that or whatever. Or?
No, I think the way we're looking at it is we can't. Nobody can do what Prince did. Nobody can do that. But we can take that sound that he liked, which was part of some of his records. Which is, and do what we do with that, you know what I mean? And see what comes of that. It's kind of like our new singer, Mackenzie. Mm-hmm. The biggest compliment I hear from fans is that he's not trying to be Prince.
Right.
That's what they love about it. That's the last thing they want to see is somebody up there with a purple suit on trying to hit the splits.
Right.
Right? They're like, man, you do what you do, and it'll be cool. And so that's why I don't really feel any pressure because the fans don't want that either. They want to hear what we can do, of course, they want to hear a little bit of the influence there,
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, they just saying, hey, just do y'all thing, man. So I don't think we feel any pressure. We're very excited about the new music, though, and we'll see what everybody thinks when we get done.
How does it feel for you getting back on stage with your guys in the MPG and out there hitting the road again and doing shows and stuff?
It's great. It's wonderful. It's interesting to hear that music when all of us are on the stage at the same time, because we all play with a lot of different people. But when we get together on the same stage, you're like, that's the sound. You know what I mean? And it takes all of us to make that sound. So, but even bigger than that is, I never thought we'd be able to do this in the absence of Prince. Mm. I never thought the fans would be okay with it. You know what I mean? So I'm amazed at that every night that they're like, they know Prince is not there. Mm-hmm. But it's weird. It feels like he is, but I know he's not. And they're okay with that. I don't know. It's very deep thing for me, man.
I'm curious, I know what you mean, but in terms of you, how do you? I assume you're okay with it, but were you at first sort of resistant to it, maybe, or because of that, or?
I didn't really know what. I guess I was looking for a thumbs up to say that it's okay for us to do it, and then I didn't really know how much we were going to do it. Because, we did when Prince, when he first died, we did those, tribute show, then the Paisley celebration. After that, I really didn't know, how much of this that they wanted to hear. But, they were like, hey, we want to hear as much as we can. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a thumbs up, it's okay. If you guys want to play, we want to hear it. If you don't, we understand. It was cool. It's just love, you know what I mean?
Right, okay, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Have you guys? Has there ever been a discussion among everybody about doing just like a big sort of thing where it's like MPG and Revolution and just all of them coming together to do something?
Yeah, I think that Prince wouldn't have it any other way. So that's always in our mind. Pulling together has been a little bit of a challenge, but we're still working on it.
Okay.
And I'm not going to rest Orion until that actually happens. And there's a lot of people who feel the same. So
yeah,
it's going to happen. I just don't know when, but we're gonna pull it together.
That's good, because that's something I know a lot of people we want to see everybody united. You know what I'm saying, doing their thing, because. That would, for us as a fans, we love all y'all, so we just like, we want to see that, when you and
it's
you
one family, man.
Yeah, and you brought it up, the Avengers, right? Like the Avengers is dope when you get to see Captain America and Black Panther, and like when they all really come together, then it's like, oh shit, okay, so that's what we want to see. I want to see Wendy, Miko, Levi all rocking out, and I want to see Sonny, Bob, so, but yeah, man.
Right.
And also you guys have a very great show coming up September 13th at First Avenue, NPG. You guys are doing, I guess, actually your first official concert there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's going to be amazing.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. It's pay-per-view and the whole thing. And, we're still working on some special guests. We're pulling it all together, man.
Okay. And then you got, this is also going to be in conjunction with PRN alumni as well. So shout out to them. Listen.
It's going to be a big family thing, yeah.
Okay. When's the last time I guess you guys, you don't live in Minneapolis, do you?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No.
I would imagine you kind of going back and forth between there. You staying? Were you back in the Bay Area now, or?
Oh yeah, I've been in the Bay for a minute.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And as we wrap up here, give me some of the names of other people you've been playing with. You mentioned 2020 Tony. You did some stuff with Jody Watley too, right?
Yeah. Actually, her single that's out now, it's a lot of guitar on there. And we wrote some stuff together. I don't know if it's going to be on a new record, but I toured with her for about 4 years.
Wow.
And then the Tonys, and then Raphael, and the Sounds of Blackness. And then currently, just did a single with Lenny Williams from Tower.
Oh, really?
Yes, it just came out like a couple weeks ago.
What's the name of this? We gotta look this up.
It's called Fine.
Fine. Okay.
Fine. Look it up. Tell them what you think.
Yeah, we'll check.
And we're working on an EP right now. Then there's some local artists. Corey DePort, he got a song on there. Then Niecy Robinson.
Okay.
Dee Dee Simon out here in the Bay Area. Latoya London, for American Idol. She's been through here.
Okay.
Yeah. So, trying to cook up some new stuff.
Levi's in the lab getting busy.
I'm trying, man.
Yeah, you doing it, brother. You doing it. Listen, man, I really appreciate you sitting down with us, man, and sharing these great stories and listening to your journey as you've been moving and doing your things. Started at 6 years old in the church. Would you call it the cigar guitar? What do you call it?
Cigar box guitar.
Cigar box guitar. Being in the church, boy, you better get them notes right before you get slapped upside the head. I love that. That's what's up. Where can people find you online? Do you have like a website, or are you on Twitter or something? Where can they reach out to you and say thank you?
They can just my Facebook page and Instagram.
Okay.
I do a little bit of Twitter, but mainly Facebook and Instagram.
All right.
And I'm gonna be adding more, but I'm getting older now, so
ain't no excuse. And,
right.
And last thing, actually, here's the last thing, man. What did you learn from Prince during your time working with him?
What did I learn? Say it again.
What did you learn from Prince during your time working with him?
That God gave us all different talents, so nobody's bigger than the next person. Mm-hmm. But it'd be a shame if you've been given a talent and you don't use it or nurture it. That's the real sin. God gave you a gift to do something and you don't do nothing with it. Mm-hmm. I mean, what was the point? You know what I mean? So Prince used to always say, man, hey, God, he gave us different gifts. And so if we want to honor God with that, then we need to practice. We need to work. We need to do what we got to do to take it to the highest level that we can, within reason. I mean, you got to have a life, too. You know what I mean? Mm. Can't be totally absorbed. And then, to try to be decent human beings and care for one another. And if you got something, man, try to help somebody out. Help them out. Because you're going to need some help one day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And just go, and don't be lazy. I think if I summed it up in one word, don't be lazy. Do something. Mm. Get up. Prince had a saying, he wrote in a song, nothing comes to dreamers but dreams. Nothing comes to talkers but sound.
I dig it.
Right. And then I'm like, you know what I mean? It's like, that's true. Quit talking. Go do something. Quit dreaming. Go do something.
Mm. There it is. Yeah. There it is. Mr. Levi Seacer Jr., you've been listening to the Prince podcast here on Podcast Juice. My name is Michael Dean. As I always say, work it like a job. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Cause I got plans for you. I miss you, kiss you, thinking of you in my head. Your body's so bad, never made it to the bed. star of my band. Maybe kinda sorta I could be your man. We can make a movie about our life. Starring me and you and let it come out tight. Cause baby we can be a new team. Spend the afternoon rehearsing love scenes. All my life I leave behind just the waste of my time. So I want you,